So, Jonathan Snyder, Alejandro De Paz, you
Yes.
go by Ale.
Ale, yeah.
Okay. How would you guys describe what you do currently? We'll start with like what's the now.
Currently, I mean, short form is design and build furniture, and that's limited by like our imagination and capabilities and stuff like that. So,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. As like simple and straightforward as we can be, we're just trying to make furniture as high quality as we possibly can. And yeah, right now sell it mostly in Los Angeles.
Cool. Okay. So we have kind of the now established. We're going to jump back a little bit. So we'll go one at a time. Jonathan, when and where were you born?
I was born 1986 in North Jersey.
Okay.
Sick place to grow up, and was there until I was about like 18. Yeah, I don't know how far, like, where.
We'll dig deeper. Really
Sure.
what I'm trying to learn is like, I think the next question is, what was your upbringing like? Were your parents craftspeople, artists? Like, what did they do?
My dad was an entrepreneur,
Okay.
which I think was really helpful, getting into what we do. So he owned a cable contracting company in New York. My mom worked in insurance her whole life, but like professional working people.
Okay.
And I think like, especially comparative now, like still kind of a latchkey kid in like
Okay.
the 90s,
Yeah.
like small suburbs, running around all day until, it was time to go home for dinner.
Okay. Were there any signs of your inclination or interest in craftsmanship or art at a young age?
Yeah, so I grew up playing music, and that was, by the time I was like 12 or 13, had a little band with my friends, and it became like pretty clear pretty quick. That's like all I cared about.
Okay.
So it was all about just every second I could pull away, trying to get into a room and play music with my friends. And just like everything else, it starts a terrible little kid band. And just like worked at it and grinded until we were good enough, and then we were able to get out and play shows. And while I was still in high school, like signed a little indie record deal.
Nice.
And then spent like 10 years touring in bands after that.
Oh wow, so you were like a professional musician for a while.
Yeah, professional, yes. Broke, yeah, sure.
Okay.
But yes, that's all I did for like a decade.
So like what years of your life was that decade?
I was on tour from 16 to about 26.
And what instrument did you play or play?
Bass player.
Okay.
And just to, I don't want to like force tying it to what we're doing now necessarily, but that's like, being a bass player for me was kind of interesting. It's like, I don't sing, I've never written a song. I played music professionally for 10 years. So the entrepreneurship of being in a band, I think started really early for me. You're selling art, and
Yeah.
you don't want to look at it like that, and especially when you're dealing with record labels and corporations, that gets very literal. But for us, especially coming from like a DIY music scene, it was a lot of selling t-shirts and making stickers and booking shows and doing as much as we could. And it wasn't until I was kind of older and moving on to the next thing that I realized how much of an entrepreneurial sort of exercise that 10 years of playing music was.
Okay. So you said, remind me, that touring started when you were how old?
I was 16. I dropped out of high school to go on tour with my friends.
So was that your first job of any kind, like your first way to try and make money off of something?
Yeah, I had like a summer office job when I was a kid. I was a terrible employee. 16-year-old kids aren't good employees typically. Fell asleep at my desk and kind of fucked around. And then, just on tour. It was like my first band in high school. When we split up, I was like, I'm done with music. Time to move on to the next phase of my life. And then I did get a job in a mailroom, and I lasted about 2 weeks before I was just like, fuck this. Like, playing music was so awesome.
Yeah.
And then immediately tried to start finding another band and got hired from a band in Utah that I then toured with again for a few years.
So you did it for 10 years, but you mentioned being broke. Were you broke that whole time?
Broke's relative, especially when you're a kid. It's like when you're on tour, I never had any money, but I also had a place to stay, a place to live,
Yeah.
you know, food's paid for. So kind of just like, I don't know, almost like hoboing it around. And I think that sort of, and a lot of people in that position, in that industry, especially back then, it's changed a lot now. It's like you do that and hopefully you make some money. And at the end of it, you are kind of financially stable. And I never really did. So by the time I was done touring, I was just in LA trying to figure out what to do next.
Was the hope at that time, like, were you aiming towards a career as a musician? Like, were you trying to be a rock star? Or, you know, what was the objective? Did you have any thoughts at that point in your life of like, what do I want to do in the future? Or were you just living?
I think I was just living, man. And that's also like such a privilege, having that time in your early 20s. You don't care about anything except for playing music and hanging out with your friends is like a really beautiful, freeing experience. I was fortunate too. It was like the people that I surrounded myself with were all amazing, like still great friends. All really smart. That's like, I dropped out of high school. If I wasn't surrounded by really smart people, I think I would like hardly know how to read, but fortunately I was around like a lot of talented, really cool people. And yeah, I wasn't thinking about the future too much. I kind of thought I might work in the music industry and like work for a booking agent or management. I was always interested in music business, but it honestly just like, I don't know, I spent a lot of time with people in the music industry and it's like, it seemed very rigid, didn't seem for me. I didn't really fit into what I thought that mold was.
Like the corporate part of the music industry?
Yeah, I'm honestly, like I was involved in it, but I can't really speak to, like I've never worked at a label or in any of those offices. I just don't think I was done being an artist, really.
Got it, okay. So the 10 years of touring, you were just like, were you enjoying that? You were just kind of like riding the wave until...
Yeah, enjoyed it until you don't. It's like, I think especially, you know, it's like especially I think like young men, brains don't really get done cooking until you're like 25.
I've heard people say that a man's life starts at 30.
Yeah. And I'm like a shining example of that.
Okay.
So like 25, 26, I think all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's, you know, future. Like I'd like to be like a little stable. And that kind of changed my relationship with touring because you're just...
It's not stable at all.
No, it's chaos. And it's super fun, like love it. But started to just get, tired, exhausting.
So what were you thinking at that point? You knew there had to be a change. So what were you thinking about what was next? Dropped out of college, you'd just been touring for 10 years, probably a majority of the year.
Yeah.
Not building any other like skills, experiences besides...
Dude, no resume,
Music.
no job experience, you know, some charm to kind of like push me through the next thing. I spent a couple years after that, after I stopped touring, I worked in kitchens. I wanted to be a cook.
You wanted to be a cook? Okay, what sparked that?
I liked cooking. I was obsessed with Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah, there's a picture of him
Yeah.
right behind me on the wall there.
And like, you know, I would read a lot. I read a lot of his books. And it just seemed there was a lot of commonality in what I was doing and sort of that. It's still existing at kind of like the fringe of society.
Yeah.
You're keeping crazy hours. You're working super hard. There was like a romance to it. So I just got a job, and it was at my first cooking job. Again, no experience. I showed up to an interview, and the chef was an old jazz musician.
Oh, cool.
And he's interviewing me, kind of like looking at me sideways, like, you have no experience, like, what are you doing here? But at the end of the interview, he was just like, I don't know, see something in you, and I like musicians, so like, he gave me a job. I started working at that, started taking cooking seriously, got kind of good at it. I started doing private dinners in my house for like a couple years on and off. It was fun. I was getting better. It was like a blast with my friends. Breaking even, you know, getting a little bit of cash here or there, but not making any money. And I kind of worked that way up, ended up working in like fine dining kitchens that, you know, it's sort of like, you know, The Bears, like this huge show, those kitchens are brutal. They were back then, I think they still are now. I burnt out super quick. Once I got to cooking at that level, it was like 6 months.
Wow.
And then
you're burnt out in 6 months.
Oh yeah, dude, I was dead. I was working 6-7 days a week, you know, 10, 12-hour days.
Jesus.
And even at 26, it's just like my body was giving out.
Yeah. I imagine those were very stressful environments too, like pretty high pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of pressure, all the classic stuff. And at the time too, I felt pretty beat up because I felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt like I was failing, like I was failing out. I look back at it now and just like, no, I washed out. I was burnt,
Why did you feel like you were failing?
Because I wasn't keeping up. I think like you can look at burnout like that when you're in the moment,
Yeah, I know
especially mentally, sort of already under so much stress and beaten down, and it's like going to work's hard, and I didn't think that it's like, oh, because my job's hard and I'm burnt out. It was just like, oh, I fucking suck at this,
Yeah, that's a tough spot because I just left I had a job that was like that. It was like intense, long hours. And I felt kind of guilty because other people seemed to be doing okay, and I was like, I'm fucking over this. But then you're just like, no, that just wasn't my spot.
Yep.
Just out of alignment.
And the same experience. I'm around these other guys who are straight killers. Like they are crushing it, showing up every day, and seemingly just like. And I look at them now and just like, oh, you guys are gonna be great. Like you're gonna have big, long careers doing this as long as you want. And I just like couldn't hack it. And yeah, in hindsight, I was burnt out, and those jobs fucking sucked. So
Yeah.
it was hard. And it was after that, after I burnt out of the restaurant industry, I wanted to do anything but that, and I had a good friend who had just started a furniture company, super kind of DIY, like bootstrapping it, doing really simple sort of like framing lumber, putting it together, hustling on Craigslist. But he started making money and took off, so he hired me to start sanding tables. I was just excited to do anything but cook at that point.
Okay. And how old were you at this point?
That's got to be like 28.
Okay, so you toured from 16 to 26, and then does that drop you in Los Angeles at 26?
Yeah.
And that's when you started cooking here. And have you like lived here continuously since that point?
Yeah, I say I started living here in 2009, but I was on the road still so much that I would live here for 2-3 months and then be playing shows the rest of the year, kind of end up back here. So it was sort of on and off, but that sort of 26 is when I was here, for good, permanently.
Okay. That's when the cooking started.
That's when the cooking started, yeah.
You did that for how long?
A couple years.
Okay. And then you burned out somewhat quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then sanding tables for my buddy.
So how'd you meet that guy?
It's a guy, JR. He actually went on to co-found Liquid Death.
Oh, cool.
So he was a serial entrepreneur, and that was just what he was focusing on at the time. And I knew him, friends of friends. I was playing in bands in LA still, even though I was off the road, and so just had this big network of people. I had a good friend who I was playing music with who was already working for him, and kind of just like got folded in there. And as soon as I met JR, he's a real inspirational dude. He's a great mentor, and he was just getting started. He was an amazing entrepreneur, and as soon as I was interested in everything he was doing, it was like, oh, like cool. Like everything he knew, he would just lay on me all the time. And I started then managing his production, took on a little more responsibility, started working. I got really interested in woodworking, and then started developing some of the products, developing the sort of systems that we were using to build everything, and started seeing the furniture get better and better and better. And that was, the beginning of this. And I think the thing coming from music and then coming from food were values like very theoretical.
What do you mean by that?
You record an album and you spend a lot of time, a lot of money, inspiration to make this thing. But a CD, at the time CDs, a CD is worth $10.
Yeah.
And if it's like the greatest album ever, you sell a ton of them. If it's not that good, you don't sell a lot. And of course that, some bad records sell a lot and some great records don't. But it's still a $10 CD. Once you start building furniture and you put time and effort into something, it takes up physical space and someone kind of gives it value. How much it costs is what someone's willing to pay for it. And I had something like creatively satisfying about that I'd never really experienced before.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, coming from music and food, making a piece of art that takes up physical space was really creatively satisfying. It felt new from anything that I had done before, and it was just something that I fell in love with, really wanted to pursue and like keep doing.
So that is interesting because music is, I guess it's like food. You eat food, it's gone. Like, you know,
Consumable art. Yeah.
Music, like it could live on a CD or on on your phone these days. So it's like not quite the same as food, where it'll just disappear. But
Yeah.
it is different. It doesn't take up. It just takes up digital space. You're like a physical object is like in your life. You see it every day.
Yeah, and I think that's what I mean about theoretical value with like music is it's a more complicated industry. It's it's making music that connects with people that will live on. It's also live shows and touring and really trying to, it feels complicated in comparison to I built a table, it cost this much, you know? It's like, always felt like a very straight line.
Okay, the simplicity part of it was part of what drew you to it then.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I appreciate that. That's an interesting insight. So JR was the guy who had, what exactly was his business?
He had a furniture company called St. Arbor.
Okay.
That was in LA, manufacturing in Los Angeles, making wood furniture, and then kind of moved into like reclaimed wood and steel bases.
Okay. And how did you said you met him through your cooking job? You had a musician friend.
I met him through musicians.
Okay.
Just kind of like the big friend group that I had in Los Angeles. And yeah, he was doing that. I think the coolest part, besides working with JR, and he's just a really smart, talented entrepreneur, it also gave me, it's like the way that I like to learn, it kind of gave me, it's like, all right, here's a wood shop, here's wood, figure it out, When I'm able to sort of touch things and figure things out and kind of do it my own way, make some mistakes, that works really well for me. It works way better than someone kind of just like telling me what to do. It was the same, I wasn't very good at school for kind of the same reason.
Got it.
So
he was hands off. He was like, go do that, and you had to just figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it just like, it was a really great timing. I'm working with some talented people and had the freedom to figure things out on my own. And it was just sort of, perfect. It was this nice little gift that I got along the way, and everything just worked. That being said, eventually JR moved on from that company. He didn't want to manufacture in Los Angeles anymore. So he moved into sort of more like design and manufacturing, like outsourcing all of his production. When he did that, I wasn't done. Like I felt like I just got started. I was just getting good at woodworking. I was just figuring out how it all worked. I still had a lot of ideas on how I wanted to do things. So at that time, I bought a lot of his tools, bought some material, and I had another great friend who I met along the way. He was my music manager, Mike Kaminsky. He's still a music manager. He's a real successful, real talented guy. And he allowed me to set up a little wood shop in his backyard in Silver Lake. So I literally, hung some tarps up, put some tools and some lumber, and just started building furniture during the day in his backyard and seeing what we could make on our own. And that kind of became the birth of really like what we're doing now.
Okay, so that was just, were you by yourself at that period of time? Just you?
No, there was some people that were still from St. Arbor that I was working with, and then met a few people along the way. But yeah, and so that was like the beginning of like we can do this on our own. We can build this furniture. We can sell this furniture, and it's like the beginning of the learning process to become kind of an actual entrepreneur, actually build things and sell things ourselves.
So when you first started working for St. Arbor, there was no like inclination or interest and I want to be a woodworker. It was just, here's a job that's not cooking. Sick, let's do that.
Yeah, you know, it was, and I think a lot of people, when I started building and selling furniture, were surprised. It felt random that that's where I kind of ended up. But I remember a friend who I played in one of my first bands with, talking to him about it early on. He was like, "Oh, that totally makes sense. Like, you were always putting things together."
Okay.
Yeah, I just remember like our first trailer that we had when we were touring around in bands, and it's like, you know, I went to Home Depot and I'd cut up all the lumber. I made cubbies for everybody.
Cool.
I was always putting stuff in the van and like building things. So it was always there, but it was kind of just like, it was, yeah, way in the background.
I think that's one of the things I'm trying to pull out is I see, it's like sometimes you don't see it until you're looking back. It's like the dots don't connect until you're looking back at the path you came on.
Yeah.
Like for me, looking back now, I can see that I always loved photos. I would get magazines, but I would look at the ads because I liked looking at the photos. Like my earliest dream job I can remember having is to be a National Geographic photographer.
Yeah. So.
But for me, that was like, I was like, that's never gonna happen. That's like trying to be Brad Pitt, which is part of the genesis of this show, is to like tell those type of stories. But I can see looking back now, like, okay, I really loved photos, but I didn't think I had no idea what it was like to be a photographer for money.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, what's dream adjacent? And that was like working at an ad agency. So that was like my path until I did that, and I was like, no, I can't do that life. So then that was what like sparked that I have to go try this thing.
Yeah. That's interesting, and kind of a lot of the things that you're talking about, and finding that sort of like very adjacent like office job that feels it's like that path is there when you're in school. When I was in high school, I wanted to be in a band, and that, you know, telling your guidance counselor that it's like, oh no, I'm cool, like I'm gonna be in a band. No one really accepted that. It's like, you need a backup plan, maybe go work at a record label, like what's the sort of more traditional path towards that thing.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, I think one of the things was, I don't know, it's like the ignorance of youth, or just like, that kind of affords you bold-faced confidence. A lot of adults told me that I needed to figure out, you know, a more traditional path to what I wanted to do, and I was...
Which is a mega bummer, like what the fuck?
Yeah, and I think that I looked at that and was just like, absolutely not. Like, you guys are all wrong.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do it my way. I'm gonna figure it out myself. I don't know where I wish I still had some of that confidence. I don't know where that came from, but
they call that delusional confidence. And
yeah.
It's kind of what it takes to. It's what it takes to like do something of your own. You got to really have delusional confidence. It's the ones who are like, I'm gonna do it, and everyone's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that like, whether it's something on a smaller scale like what we're doing, or you're Elon Musk, you're like, I'm gonna go to fucking Mars. People are like, no, you're not, and you're like, watch me.
Yeah.
It's that like the delusional confidence that makes you wanna like, I'm just gonna fucking try.
And yeah, and it doesn't always work out, right?
No,
so
but
like,
you learn along the way. That's the other important point is you just try. Like you never regret things you try. You always regret what you don't try. So it's like you gotta have the confidence to like take the swing. And if you fail, if you miss, if you take a hit, you learn from that. That's the important part. And that's kind of why I want to do this too, is because I want the kids, hopefully someone watches this and thinks, okay, fuck that guidance counselor, I'm gonna go do my thing. Because I think we need more of that kind of person in the world. I think we need less of the like, not to shit on guidance counselors, but like, was it their dream to be a guidance counselor? I think it's tough when you talk to someone who didn't push it and go for the real thing, because when you are talking about your dream, I would bet that for certain people probably you're triggering something in them that makes them like envious or resentful, and they're like, well, I didn't follow mine, so I got to put you down. If you follow yours, that makes me feel bad about myself, like I didn't take my shot, I regret it. That's my theory of like why people, I mean, I love my mom to death, but she encouraged a conservative path for me. Like I was at the advertising job and I was like, I don't like this. I don't want to do this. This is stupid. I can do like, I have all these like quotes and aphorisms that help me kind of like in different stages of my life. And the one I got at that point was from a guy named Tom Bilyeu, who's the founder of Quest Nutrition, like Quest bars. And he had this quote, he was like, the struggle is guaranteed, but the success isn't. So go where you like the struggle. And I was like, I don't like this struggle at all. I don't like taking the train to my cubicle and making $40,000. This is stupid. I'd rather, I was living in New York too. I'd rather go live in Los Angeles where the weather's nice. I can go to the beach and the mountains and I can like struggle with something I care about. So I think that's another hope with this is to like tell those stories of like, yeah, people did tell me. I had that guy in town said, don't do that. My parents said, you need to find something else. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take a chance, I'm gonna take a shot, take a risk, like, because that's what it's about. It's not about like playing it safe, at least not in my opinion, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, even just that on its face, parents and guidance counselors and teachers telling you to do the practical thing is probably good advice, you know?
It probably is good advice for most people, maybe. But maybe there's a group of outliers that's not the right advice. And that's part of, and that's kind of the genesis of this was I had those people in my life who were saying, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You have a job in New York. Why are you gonna quit your job and go try and do a thing? And I was looking for someone to tell me, you can do it.
Yeah.
You should try the thing that's true to you. Like go try your thing, which is why we're sitting here today, because you got to try the thing and you're doing it.
Yeah.
My guidance counselors didn't tell me shit. It was just like, what? All right, well, you got to figure out something. Like,
Okay,
this is
well,
what you're doing? I'm like, cool.
Maybe that's better than don't do that, or better than find another path.
Yeah, totally. It's funny.
Okay, so where are we at in your story? You were working with JR. You had no inclination towards woodwork. You started working with him. His mentorship, the way he taught you, was important in your development. It gave you really hands-on, like figure it out yourself.
Yeah. And speaking of, I mentioned Mike Kaminsky. It's like the people you meet along the way. Me meeting Mike and meeting JR and their mentorship, the way that they both did business was like hugely influential on me. So it's like, I don't know, kind of talking about the struggle that you want to live in. It was like, yeah, I was struggling for those years, but the people that I met over those years were everything. And it's like, you meet a ton of people, you pick out the ones that, the moment you meet JR, it's like, oh, you're gonna be successful. The moment you meet Mike, it's just like, you're gonna crush it, you just know it. They're like special, important people. And that's like, yeah, it can't be understated how important that is.
Yeah.
And mentorship and having people to look up to kind of really changes your trajectory.
Yeah.
Going through it and doing a lot of stuff and meeting a lot of people. It's just really important to have to create those opportunities for yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that started the beginning of kind of building a furniture company in a backyard was kind of the genesis of it, and then meeting people along the way. That's once I started that company. Ale was one of the first people that we met that we started working with, and very similarly, as soon as you meet Ale, it's just like, and this dude is going to be successful. So
okay, cool.
So that was kind of when we first met each other. It was very easy. We started working together. It was just like both on the same page, believe in the same things, and started the partnership that now we're continuing.
Okay, before we jump to Ale, and then we'll weave the two of you in. You mentioned that those two people, JR and Mike Kaminsky, they taught you a lot about business, like how you operate from a business perspective.
Yeah.
Any specific things that pop out?
I guess like JR is one of the first people I met he was one of the first people I met who called himself an entrepreneur.
Okay.
First time someone said, I didn't even know what they meant. I had to look it up. And so I think his influence was helping sort of taking what you're doing very seriously. This is not like a fun art project with your friends, which, that attitude's always there, but it is like doing the back end of that. There is a business side, and sort of navigating American business is sort of how you're going to become sustainable. And that it sort of puts like, oh, this is a job, we're not, and just like, creating that possibility is really important. And if, I didn't realize that along the way, I would have been putting bits of wood together and it would have been a nice hobby.
Yeah.
So I think he was the real inspiration of like, no, there's a future in this. take it a little seriously, do some business on the back end, and you're not just building furniture, you're building a career.
Yeah.
And then Mike is a music manager who's been really successful in the music industry, and he supports, I mean, I have the story of like, I owe him my career, and there's tons of people that feel that way. He just supports artists every way he can. He has since I've met him. And that's that kind of support, and the way that he does business, he is really honest, he's really straightforward, he treats people really well. And also just giving everyone an opportunity when you meet them. It's like, I remember him talking about, you know, how many just like kids in the Midwest email him
Cool.
looking for an internship, or they're in a band. It's like, respond to all those emails. Always interested in people who are passionate about what they do, because those people in 10 years are going to be the successful people. That's where everybody starts.
Wow, that's awesome.
So his attitude of just really fostering creativity and supporting artists along the way was like another just real invaluable lesson, and great, just like, you know, teaching by example.
Yeah, the world needs more people like that to like, he probably doesn't get anything out of responding to a kid in the Midwest, besides maybe like feeling a little bit good about doing something good for someone else, but like that's some like serious altruism right there. That's like a real commitment to like helping people.
And like, I feel like there's an attitude, especially in like the tech world, where, you know, ruling with an iron fist, like using your will to bend the world. These are serious people, we work our asses off, and, you know, a lot of those people aren't very nice. Steve Jobs wasn't a nice guy.
Yeah.
And sort of building that sort of dichotomy of, you can be, take this very serious, you can be kind of an asshole, and that's how you get successful, or you're nice or not successful. Mike is the exact like opposite of that. He's a nice dude, he treats everyone really well, and he's been very successful. So it felt like just kind of pointing out a fallacy that I think is very popular in kind of like entrepreneurship culture.
Yeah, it is. You don't really hear that story much. The like super nice guy that was also successful. It's like I think there's some statistic about like an alarming number of high-level executives, like C-suite executives at companies, are like sociopaths or psychopaths, something like that, because they were able to not feel bad about putting other people down, like using other people for their own personal gain.
Yeah.
So it's nice to hear a story of.
Yeah, it's like stripping morality out of building a company, out of capitalism, and yeah, it's not true.
Okay. So JR is like, I'm not doing this anymore, and you're like, I'm not done yet. I want to keep. You're like, you got the woodworking bug, maybe we could say.
Yeah.
You're like, I want to keep going.
Yeah,
So
still had work to do.
Yeah. So you bought equipment. You were working in someone's backyard in some tarps, and then where does LA come into the picture?
That's sort of, we kind of built that, you know, from that backyard. We got our first little shop, started selling furniture, a lot more furniture. You know, the furniture kept getting better, the clients kept getting better, and Ale was our first hire. So that was like, once we got busy to the point where we needed help, met Ale.
When you say we, at that point, who is we?
That's something that like, I don't know how to talk about. I mentioned that we sold our last company.
Okay.
So kind of that genesis story that is the beginning of when I started building furniture in that backyard. Picked up another partner along the way who was like doing the sales for that company. So when we met Ale, we were still at a company, Parkman Woodworks, that I started, and we ended up all being equal partners in. And Ale and I sold it to our partner like 2 years ago.
Okay.
So I kind of don't know really how to like, navigate that entirely.
If that's not a topic that's you want to talk about, so that's totally okay. If that's something you want to avoid.
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I let you have the reins on that one. I mean, it's up to you. Really, it doesn't bother me either way. Sold the business. That was fucking sick.
Yeah.
Did you guys get a nice paycheck?
I took a year off to skateboard and drink beer.
Yeah.
Before we started this.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Just a whole year of just like,
Fucking off.
wow.
I went and
Yeah.
drank ayahuasca and hung out in Brooklyn for the summer. It was fucking tight.
Is ayahuasca in Brooklyn too?
No, I was in Costa Rica.
Okay. Cool.
Good way to unwind from selling a business.
Yeah, but was that a stressful process?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I never had a lawyer before. Like, shit, man. It's like, it was wild. It's
That's-
like, I mean, yeah, we put we put a number on a business that was something we kind of like, shit, we probably won't want to talk about this or put this in there, but we just pulled that number out of thin air, you know? And negotiations, and it's like talking about art, and like, you think of like a business you created as a piece of art, and you got to put a number on it because there's a sale happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really tough to put a number on something like that.
Yeah. I mean,
I think that pulling it out of thin air is like not uncommon. It's like, how the fuck do you quantify that?
Yeah, exactly. So there's that. But yeah, he was there. I was their first hire, and yeah.
Okay, cool. So I think we're at a good spot to jump to Ale before we kind of talk about what happened after you guys met.
Yeah, I think so. Right?
We'll kind of like, we'll bring Ale, we'll catch him up until the point where you guys met, and then we'll
Yeah,
explore more there.
I guess just thinking out loud about like the sale of our last company, I don't want to like purposefully avoid anything or be like disingenuous. That sale was really stressful. I definitely don't want to name them by name or kind of say anything bad or denigrating about them. You know, they do good work. We built that company, but it does feel just like something I don't know, we can try to navigate around a little bit.
Let's just say there's still bad blood there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Not really. I just don't want to talk about it.
I think we can. Yeah, I think we can. We have the gist of the
Yeah.
situation. Yeah.
Yeah. Sick.
Cool. All right. So Ale, start from the beginning. When and where were you born?
I was born in the year 1990 in Bitburg, Germany.
Okay.
My dad was in the Air Force for 30 years. So born there, moved to Virginia. I think I was like 9 months or maybe a year old. So no Germany. Like I was just born and left. Was in Yorktown, Virginia till I was 9. Then moved to Okinawa, Japan from 9 to 15.
Wow.
High school. Growing up years is where I say I grew up.
You grew up in Japan. Is that what you
Yeah.
say? Okay.
Yeah, like where you become a teenager and
Yeah.
do teenage things.
What was that like growing up in Japan?
The best.
Yeah?
It was sick, yeah. It was really rad. Okinawa is like such a small island. It's like a small town, you know?
Yeah.
Not super small, but yeah, it was super fun.
Okay.
And then from there I went to North Carolina for 2 years and then Georgia to finish off high school.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, growing up in Japan was fucking sick though. Yeah, it was super fun. The food, the culture, everybody's nice. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, it was a wild experience. Like, when my pop came home one day, I was like, we're moving to Japan. Like, I didn't even know what the military was. I just thought he wore a funny uniform, you know, that just had like a normal job like everybody else. You
Yeah.
know? It was like, what? We're moving? We have to? Like, fuck. But yeah.
Okay.
So where do I go from?
I think you say Japan, which is really interesting because I feel a Japanese influence in some of your pieces, especially this table and this chair. Like I feel the kind of like the very simplistic, minimalistic, like
Yeah.
almost like you can kind of like feel the zen in the shape and the style. Did you pick up some of that from that period in your life?
I think so. I think there's a couple different influences. I think I'm just kind of like naturally like kind of calm dude.
Okay.
Depending on the situation, I guess. Obviously. But yeah, I think my style has always been like kind of just chill and relax, and like whether it's through I guess like the clothes I wear and like I don't know, you know, stuff like that. So I think simple, especially like, you know, designing this stuff, it's like, yeah, the simple, simplistic, timeless, and like whatever, that shit appeals to me.
Okay, okay. Were there, when you were growing up, what were you into? Like, what were you passionate about?
So when I got to Japan, I remember my parents we lived like off the military base, and they would, after school I would just go to like the youth center and hang out, but I didn't really like talk to people that much. So there was a skate park there, and I just like would sit and watch like people skateboard. And then eventually I got into it, so I started skateboarding at 10, which I still do to this day. So that I think was a very pivotal thing in my life, and where a lot of my influence comes from. Like starting in the early 2000s, skateboarding, I feel like shapes still to this day a lot of culture.
Okay, how so? Do you have any like examples, or what do you mean by that?
Just like music and like
Okay.
fucking style, fashion, just like general people persona. Like I feel like I could see a lot of things that I feel like, man, that was skateboarding.
Okay,
Like,
okay.
That came from fucking like,
Okay.
you know, a lot of, I can't pinpoint it right now, but
I see what you mean.
if I were to
Yeah,
see
yeah.
like, I mean, back in my day, it's like, if I saw someone wearing Vans, they skated, you know? It's like,
Okay,
now you can't really.
everyone's got Vans.
Hey, you skate too? No, you don't.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, but yeah, that was like a very, very pivotal thing. Sorry, I'm like kind of scrambled.
That's okay.
Yeah.
We have nothing but time. This is for scrambling and rambling.
But yeah, so I think after, yeah, so what was I saying? Skateboarding?
I was curious about what you were passionate about, or what you spent your time doing growing up. I think just how we kind of like found a little bit of a through line with Jonathan. He was like, I was building stuff. That there was something there. I'm
Yeah.
curious, like, you were passionate about skateboarding. It
Yeah.
doesn't sound like your parents were artistic or crafty.
No,
or
not at all. Not really. My dad fixed airplanes, and my
Okay.
mom was a banker. She always worked at a bank, just like a bank teller,
Okay.
and that's pretty much it.
Fixing airplanes pretty like hands-on though. You got to have like some ability.
Yeah. He was really good at what he did. He would tell me they would like race on like, I think it was like an F-15 or some shit, like in Langley when we were at Virginia, like breaking shit down and put it together
okay.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
They would like race to like break it down and put it back together. See how
Yeah.
fast they could do it.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, I think so. But yeah, very straightforward job, like not really that creative. Yeah, pretty normal for a military family
Yeah, yeah.
moving around.
So skateboarding, when you're in Japan, is when you got into skateboarding.
Yeah, the scene, it was like pretty big skateboard scene there, surprisingly. There's like 2 skate parks on my military base.
Wow.
And on that island, there's like 7 military bases, and the
Jesus.
island's only 70 miles long and like 4 miles wide at its widest. And there's like 2 high schools, a bunch of elementary schools, just like a big American presence, you know.
Okay.
In World War II, they kind of like fucked that shit up and
Got it.
they put a lot of America there. But and that's like they call it the Keystone of the Pacific, where they like strategically like look at China and all the other countries
Got it,
keep
okay.
an eye on over there.
Yeah.
But so because of that, there's so many people. There's a big scene. I had a lot of friends. Yeah, just like growing up, filming and skateboarding, trying to make your own skateboard videos. Jackass is coming out around
yeah.
this time. CKY videos, Bam Margera, all that stuff. So, you know, throwing your friend in a shopping cart and pushing him into a bush and dumb shit like that. So like that's what I did. Skateboarding in general is like from like 10 to let's say before I met Jonathan, it's like that's all I really, it still kind of like consumes my world, so it kind of always has. So coming from that, you get like a DIY mentality, you know.
Mhm.
You're in a place where like say I moved to North Carolina, there's not much going on there. You have to like build your own spots, or go search for spots and stuff like that. So I think a lot of what translates within skateboarding to what we do here is like failing, learning new
Yeah.
tricks. I've definitely like worked with concrete, you're just like, it would be cool to like, all right, we're gonna like steal some center blocks from this construction site and then fucking buy a bag of Quikrete, mix it up with some water, we'll figure it out, So just doing stuff like that.
That's interesting. I think skateboarding seems to have, I think, a couple parallels. One is like an appreciation for like shape
Yes.
and form, because you're like, oh, that ledge is nice, or I want to build. You got to build like the right curve for a quarter pipe, or I think could be an interesting parallel. But the DIY mentality is also really interesting. I think it's also skateboarding is like very individualistic.
It
like
is.
very like I'm trying to think of the right word for it, but just very like like against the grain. Like I'm doing my own thing.
It can be, it's like a performance art that you can consider also a sport, It's like someone can do some crazy shit. It's like, oh, cool. But someone can do a very simple thing with grace and style, and then it means so much more.
That's
and
a
then you
really
talk
great
about comparing that to furniture and how we're talking about putting value on certain things. It's like, we can do this simple, sleek design that costs a lot more money, or you can do this crazy, intricate stuff that kind of hurts your eyes to look at because it's so crazy.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, whatever. Like,
That's
it
a
just,
great point.
there's no wrong answer. It's just art.
That's a really great point. Yeah.
So it's like, that's where I come from. It's
Okay.
like always kind of like having my own style within how I skateboard and how I dress and all that stuff, and just, meeting Jonathan and, starting furniture, it's just like, just easily transferable. I feel like that kind of like just, I guess, way of thinking and way of like perceiving the world around you.
Yeah. I think the failing part is interesting too, because you're right. Skateboarding, when you're trying tricks, is like you're failing and it hurts. Like you're falling and scraping things and breaking bones, and you got to like really want to get back up and go again. You got to like really be able to push through the discomfort.
Totally.
The pain. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then you find appreciation for the discomfort. Like Jonathan was saying about finding the struggle, or I think that was you, finding the struggle that you like.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It's like, I found that at a very early age.
That's really cool.
But not something that was like, I never thought of it as like a career.
Okay.
Because by the time I was like 15, 2005, there was already so many good people, and it was like, dang, I don't have a fucking chance in this shit. I just love doing it. I'm not gonna like take it too seriously in terms of like trying to get money out of it. So, yeah.
That can also sometimes kind of like ruin the thing. I've heard people say like,
Yeah, definitely.
if you start making your joy, your whatever brings you joy, a money maker to it, kind of starts to get in the way of your enjoyment of it.
Of course. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, monetizing what you love kind of changes your relationship significantly, right?
It's tough.
That and like, with that, let's compare that to you turn it into a job, and you hear a lot of entrepreneurs like, they just don't like being told what to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you don't want to like answer to someone. So if you're gonna turn that into a job, it's like, all right, well, you need to do this with this and make like, you have a shit to do now. It's not just fun. You can't just like,
it's a great point.
yeah. So
Really great point.
Yeah, but it's hard to say no if that's how you're paying your rent,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, that's a really great point.
Yeah.
That was one of my other frustrations with the like commercial advertising photography world, was there's a lot of people like with their hands in the pie and trying to like, have control over it because they want credit or because they want to look good to their boss. And I was just like, Jesus, this is like sucking the fun out of what I used to enjoy creatively, of like, I don't know if I really want to pursue that. Like if it's so like unpleasant, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay, so Japan from how old to 15?
9.
9 to 15. Was skateboarding like your main thing in life? Like that
Once
was.
it started, I played soccer actually from I was like 5 until I was like 15-ish. Yeah, from 5 to 15. My dad grew up playing soccer too, so he was always my coach up until I got into high school. But yeah, once skateboarding, like within the first like 2 or 3 years, I kind of got decently good in skill, and it just kind of clashed. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this shit anymore.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
but yeah, it took over for sure.
So at 15 is when you're thinking like, okay, I love this, I love skateboarding, but I don't think it's going to be a career.
Yeah.
About that time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then that was when you moved to Virginia,
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Mhm.
And so what, and how long were you in North Carolina for?
For 2 years.
So what was life like then? Was skateboarding still the main thing? You're like
It was.
you're like in mid-high school.
Yeah, from 10th grade to 11th grade, I was in North Carolina.
Okay.
So started high school and then left. That was an interesting time just because I didn't really have many friends in North Carolina. And I lived like inside of an army base.
That's tough.
And I lived inside of an Air Force base, inside of an army base,
Okay.
which was crazy. Yeah, it was like pretty wild. I got bused to this school. For some reason, the people that lived on the military base went to like the worst school too. It's like people bringing guns all the time to school. It was like I was seeing like 5 fights a week.
Jesus.
It was kind of fun to like experience because I was just like a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
You kind of have to be in that world for it to like, that world doesn't just like, well, maybe now or maybe in like a super big city like LA, it's just potentially dangerous and whatever, like especially back then, I'm sure it was like way more dangerous in the city.
Yeah.
But in North Carolina, I just felt like a fly on the wall, it was like pretty wild. So even I did have a couple of friends, but there was no like public transit or like some of my friends, they weren't military. You can't get on the military base. So I'm kind of just like locked in this base for the most part. Yeah, it was pretty wild. Sometimes my mom would let me use her car, which was insane because I didn't have my driver's license. It was just like a wish and a prayer.
Yeah.
And like my dad, like my pop was like in Afghanistan, so he'd be like, oh, like go do your thing. And I would like go to the skate park and skate and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was your main thing then, like, was it pretty much just school and skate?
Totally.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
it.
Like every free moment, you're just like, I'm gonna skate.
Yeah, exactly. And a couple of times we would like go out of town. Like it was fuck man, I think even on a school night one time, like my mom was like so nice to me because I just like never really left the house unless I was skating, and it was like I was just alone a lot of the time. Like some of I had some friends in town, like again, they weren't military, but they would I would like meet up with them and we'd go skate like Charlotte or something that was like 3 hours away, and we'd sometimes get there at like midnight and like hop fences and skate these high schools and stuff, and then drive all the way back 3 hours back.
Wow.
In the same night and be back at like 5 in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah, it was so fun, but it was, just random. And then even on that, like talking about the DIY mentality, this dude had like a Ford Taurus, the trunk was massive, all these tools and shit. I'm like, why do you have, I was like, oh, you have a push broom for like if we find this random spot, and it's like a bunch of pebbles. And he's got like a hacksaw in there. He's got like all kinds of random shit. And sometimes we'd see like abandoned buildings on the way and like pull off, and like remember this one time there's like metal rafters like in this abandoned building, like he hacksawed it, like made a rail, and we like skated it and even filmed like a couple tricks there, and just like all right, and like kept it moving to the town we were going to. I was like, dude, this is so fucking cool, these guys are rad. And this is before like Instagram. We're not doing this for like the cloud or like posting it like look how cool we are or something. It was just like these dudes were just like the coolest dudes and shit.
Just skating just because they love it.
That was just like their lifestyle.
Were they older than you?
Yeah.
How much older?
I think just like maybe 3 or 4 years old.
Okay. Were they graduated?
Yeah, this dude graduated specifically, this one person.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you left. This is North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Did you leave before you graduated high school?
I did. Yeah, so Georgia was my third high school and a second in 2 countries.
Wow.
Yeah, because I started high school in Okinawa.
Yeah. Okay.
So by the time I got to Georgia, like I had like more credits than I needed to graduate before I even hit 12th grade because the school systems were different.
I see.
So I just took like an English class for like half the year and then I was done.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What was it? Was it more of the same in Georgia, just school and skate?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah,
Okay.
I met some, it was just pretty much school and skate, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And then you graduate, and did your parents kick you out, or like what were you?
No, dude, I just kind of picked a fun, like, title. I was like, oh, I'll be an engineer. I'm like, okay, I had good grades in high school. I was like, yeah, I'll fucking do this. It sounds like prestigious. And then I got accepted to some school back in North Carolina, but I ended up just staying in my town for college. And then, you know, when you're in college, you like before you go to college, I feel like you kind of have like I might want to do this. I do
Yeah.
this. I think I got to college and I was like, dude, I just gotta graduate. I don't give a fuck. Like, this shit sucks. I'm doing this for my parents, and then I can fuck off and just like, because my whole thing was like, I just wanted to make enough money to be able to pay my bills and to skateboard,
Okay.
and that's it. Like, that's how I kind of lived my life. I didn't have like a career in mind or like, you know, like
Yeah.
anything. I was just like, I just want to like pay my bills and skate. Like, that's it.
So was and maybe even is, sounds like skateboarding was like the number one objective in life, was like, I just want to keep doing this thing that I
I just
love.
want to be able to do it when
Yeah.
I'm not paying my bill, like working, you know?
Yeah,
And I
okay.
don't want my job to like consume my life kind
Yeah,
of thing, you
Yeah.
know?
Okay. Where did Virginia play into this timeline?
Virginia, I was there from like 1 to 9.
Okay, that was
yeah.
early. Okay, cool.
hmm
Okay. So when you went to college, you kind of realized like, meh, oh, I just got to graduate.
Totally.
And did you stick with your engineering major that whole time?
No, I actually got a degree in Spanish.
Okay.
Yeah. So like, it was just like Spanish language and culture. So from living in Japan, and I spoke a little bit of Japanese, you know, like very minimal, but and I speak a little bit of Spanish. My family's from Panama. So I was like, this is easy. I can already speak Spanish. I'll just take this. And instead of taking like the classes to learn how to teach and be a teacher and then teach Spanish, they had this like other track where it was language and culture where you had to take other languages. So I took like 3 semesters of Japanese, a semester of French, and like I was hanging out with all these exchange students and going to the bars with them. And at one point I was like almost fluent in Japanese in college. It was
Wow.
pretty sick. While like writing papers in Spanish.
That's really
Yeah,
cool.
it was actually super sick. It was super fun. Yeah. But yeah, I just like chose that so I could just graduate. I knew that was like an easy one that I could still kind of fuck off while
Yeah.
like getting a degree, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in college, is it more the same? Is it school and skate?
Yeah, school skate and drinking pretty much.
Okay.
Partying, yeah.
Okay. So college comes to an end. You gotta start making money.
Dude, so I got a job at John Deere Water, and it was like the night shift, and it was like decent. It was like okay money, but it was like, oh, this will be like they have health insurance, and like I had a couple buddies working there, but it was like we made irrigation systems for commercial farms. So it was like it was like long machines, like the length of this room, just all in a row. Just complete like blue collar manufacturing. It took like these little plastic pellets, melted it down into like pretty much the row drip. So there's like hoses that have like the little holes in them
Yeah.
that it like lets out X amount of water per time frame for like commercial farms. And I was just like maintaining the line. And it was
Okay.
like 12-hour shifts. Like I worked
Jesus.
7 at night to 7 in the morning.
That sounds pretty
Whoa.
terrible.
Dude, yeah, it was crazy. And it was like, the schedule was like 3-2-2. It's like 3 days on, 2 days off, 2 days on, 3 days off. So it was like, you'd work 2 days a week or something, 1 week, or then 5 days a week, another week, and get like overtime. Dude, I lasted like 3 months. I just walked out.
Why?
It sucks, dude. I was like 22, like working the night shift. I felt like it was an 8 Mile or something, you know, like
okay.
making like, what was he making in that movie? I can't remember. When
I
he was
don't
a
know.
Like bump
manufacturer.
bumpers or something, like
Yeah.
car parts.
Dude. So I was like, okay, getting like the DIY mentality from skateboarding. I remember I always loved going to Home Depot, and I was like, you know, I'll just fucking work here. Like, I love walking around in Home Depot, like, for whatever reason, just looking at random tools or plants,
Home Depot's fun to walk around in.
right?
Yeah.
I was like, all right, so I got a job there, and, you know,
Doing what? What was your job?
my job at first was like a cashier and like getting the shopping carts, I think, from the parking lot. And then eventually, I get turned into a full-time job where I was like in the millwork department, selling like doors and windows, and I had a desk, and I was like, oh, cool, I got a desk now.
Were you making, what kind of money were you making then?
Fuck, I have no idea. It was very minimal. Yeah, especially in Georgia, minimum wage back then I think was like, it was definitely not $10 an hour. I think I was making more than $10 an hour, but minimum wage was not that.
I had a job in high school, which would have been like probably around like 2011, and I think I was making like $7.25 an hour in
Yeah.
Ohio. Yeah.
Dude, it's crazy to think of back then, but
Yeah.
everything was also a lot cheaper in those towns.
Also
And-
Georgia, yeah. super
Yeah,
cheap.
I'm in South Georgia at this point. But yeah, so
And that was were you in that spot where you were paying the bills and skating?
yeah, well, you know, I think at that point I just lived, since my town was so small, I just lived with my parents, so I was just kind of like, I didn't really have any bills besides, yeah, I think my car was paid off and everything too, but no, I didn't have any bills, I don't think. I moved out in college for like 1 year and like had my own bills and shit. It made no sense. My parents lived like 3 miles away, and at the time, like, my dad retired and he got this job in Dothan, Alabama. So I had this, like, my parents' house, like, they let me live in rent free, like 5 days out of the week because they would be in another state. Like, so I was
Got
like,
it.
oh,
Okay.
I had my own, like, little bachelor pad. Very fortunate. you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I took full advantage. So,
Yeah, sometimes you gotta like take the lucky breaks you get and
totally.
use them.
Yeah.
So you're working at Home Depot. You got like a pretty nice little job there.
Nice, little decent, you know, it's whatever. And I get an opportunity to go skate a contest in Santa Monica. I'm like, California? Like, all right. Like, I was writing for some people at the time, and I was like, you pay for me to go, I'll skate this contest for you.
You got
Like,
sponsors?
yeah, I had
Okay.
one
Okay.
little sponsor. And so they flew me out to California for 5 days, and I skated the contest. That sucked. I hate like being on the spotlight and stuff like that, but I was like, dude, I want to go check out California. I had this like idea that I wouldn't like it for some reason, like, oh, skateboarding, California. I was like, that's gonna annoy me for some reason, like too many skateboarders or like, I don't know. I just had this perception of it. I came out here, instantly loved it.
Okay.
I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. Like, not only can I skate all the spots that I see in videos from like my childhood and stuff like that, there's gonna be way more opportunity to make money and like have a life and have a career, whatever that may be. Or just like, I'm gonna go into this big melting pot. Because where I was at the time was just like, get a wife and kid and buy a house with a picket fence in this like
yeah.
small town. It's like, that's great. It just wasn't for me. So I came out, skated the contest, loved it out here, and I went back and I just like, Home Depot, you can transfer.
Oh, cool.
So I remember I was just sitting at my desk and I was like, fuck, I gotta leave. I gotta move to LA. Like, I love it. So I picked up the phone and I called like, I think West Covina, Home Depot. I was like, hey, I'm in millwork. I do good work. Like, you guys need anyone? I'm trying to move to LA. He's like, oh, okay, well, you should call Glendale. I called Glendale and talked to somebody, and instantly they're like, yeah, we'll hire you, like, next month. So,
That's great.
yeah,
That's
I made a
awesome.
phone call, and then I had a job
That's
in
great.
LA, starting in like a month. So I transferred and I moved here.
So you said, I work in millwork, I do good work. Are you doing the milling of the wood yourself?
No, so with doing good work, meaning like you work for like a major retailer, no one gives a fuck about their job. Like, I actually did my job. Like you could see through my numbers, like in my metrics of
Got
like,
it.
you know, people were buying. I was like selling doors and windows. That's like the millwork department.
Got it. Okay.
So yeah, I was like, dude, like you can check my stats.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm not going to be a dud.
I'm not. I think coming from a military family, it's like show up on time and I do my job, like, and then I leave. Like,
Yeah. You have some like discipline and.
yeah, a lot of those corporate places, it's like politics. People show up, they don't give a fuck, but they know the right people. They're like homies with the right person.
Yeah.
They get promoted, and then next thing you know, your boss is a fucking idiot. You know how to do your job better than they can, but they're sitting here telling you what to do because I wasn't that person. I'm just like, I'm a good worker. Like, I just,
Yeah.
you know, whatever.
That was one of my frustrations too with some of the photography stuff. Is I think, like, I cared so deeply because it was like it was going to be in my portfolio. It was my client. It was like how I made money, and I would run into these people who were just like just like what do they call it? Like a
Punch card?
yeah, just like punching their card and putting their time, and seemed like they were doing the bare minimum to just not get fired. And when I'm like working my ass off, like, you know, it's just really frustrating to be like, this person just doesn't give a fuck because they're going to get paid. They're going to keep coming in. Their company's not going to fire them.
Yeah.
But I'm like trying to get a job. I'm trying to get a campaign. I'm trying to like make this good so I get the next job, and they just don't give a shit. And it's just like,
Dude, that's how
So
it was,
frustrating.
and it didn't make any sense to me, right? Because you have this job, you're supposed to be there from this time to this time. When I got hired at Home Depot, they were like, this company is about customer service. Someone asks you a question and you're working in like the hardware department, they're like asking you about a plant, walk them to the plant department and like try and help them. You're not gonna get in trouble. But anytime you go into a Home Depot, like no one wants to help. It still baffles my mind to this day. Because that's how I guess got like the transfer, and I wasn't like the star player of any place that I worked at, but like if someone asked for help, like I was like, yeah, let's figure this out. And then I would have people, it would like build relationships. Like, oh hey, Ryan, like good to see you again. You need help with anything? Like I'm not busy. Like so it was just like building relationships, and just like that kills the time out of the day. You help intensely help someone, like 5 people throughout, that's a whole 8-hour shift.
yeah, it's true.
And then they want to come back and they're going to tell your bosses like, hey, Ale is a great dude. Like you guys need to like, this guy's going places. Like, well, I don't know. But that never made sense to me. Like, and I think as a cashier even, I remember at the time, I don't think they do this anymore, but they're like, you have $50 a day. Don't just give out $50, but like, let's say you have a line and you're ringing something up. It's not ringing up. It's like a $5 item, a $10 item. Just give it to the customer.
Okay.
I would do that shit all the time. I would hook people up left and right, and people were stoked, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Where do you think that came from? Where do you think your like interest or ability to like, I don't know, take responsibility or put the effort in? Where do you think that come from? Parents or school or your military upbringing?
probably the military upbringing, and just like, I don't know, generally a happy person, so I like to make people smile if I can. So it's like, if I can help someone and like be honest and it be a genuine interaction of like me trying to help somebody, then I think that's something you feel. You don't just, you know what I
it
mean?
definitely is.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just like a happy dude, I guess.
So you transferred to Glendale, the Glendale store?
Yes.
Okay. When was that? What, like month and year?
January, I think my start date was January 17th, 2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens
Or
next?
January 18th. I don't know, but it was just recently, and it just hit me. I was like, oh my God, it's been 8 years since I've been here.
Nice.
Crazy 8 years. So I worked millwork department, Glendale Home Depot. And again, people not doing their fucking job. People would always want lumber cut on, like, you know, they need a sheet of plywood cut into a couple pieces. I don't know if you've ever been in that experience. You can't find anyone to run the machines. It doesn't make
Never-
any sense.
never did.
You get to use a machine, and then it's like you help a client, and you're like, fuck yeah, like I saved the day or something. You know,
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
you're welcome, dude. Come back. I got you. I don't know. So I was always like running that plywood machine. I was like, yo, teach me how to use anything. I'm down to just not sit at this desk. So I like was like driving every kind of forklift there. Anyone needed anything down from the top, I'm like, yeah, let's go. Like I'm down to drive. This is fun. Like I'm gonna whip this thing around the aisles. Like
Yeah.
so I was at Home Depot. I was like using that saw, and a handful of times it'd be a handful of people. They would see how I would like slowly cut, not just like,
Oh, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
they're like, damn, you'd be a good carpenter.
Okay.
I was like, really? Like, sick. Do you need anybody? Like,
So these are like people that work with wood
Yeah.
that are seeing your care, or like what would you call that? You doing it slow and everyone else doing it fast.
shit, common sense.
Okay.
Like, not to be a dick, but it's like, you know,
Yeah.
it's a machine. You're gonna like with a blade that's like you're gonna
Yeah,
just
yeah.
rip that thing. Like that's dangerous as hell. It's scary. Like
yeah.
just
Yeah.
slow and low. Be careful. You know. Yeah, they would see that and just see my attention. I guess to detail or just like common sense in general. And like, wow, like seems like you possess the tools to work with tools or something. you
Yeah.
know?
Okay.
So.
And you remember that? You were like, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I specifically remember this guy because he had a sick ass Toyota Tacoma.
Okay.
Because I would like help people load
Oh,
their
yeah.
car. I would like go like talk to them, have a good conversation. Like, you need help loading? I'm like, I still got time to kill before lunch. Let's go. Like, I got you. And he was like, dude, yeah, you know, I could probably use you. It never worked out, but he was like, Jessica Alba. I was like, yeah, the actress. He was like, yeah, I just like did her old office. I'm like, actress has an office? Like, what the fuck? Whatever. And he's like, yeah, I'll eventually, like, I could use your help on some stuff. It never happened, but it's shit like that would start happening. Where it's like,
Okay.
yeah, like, it felt like that was, like, already brewing somehow.
Okay.
And then I also brought with me from home, my dad had this, from his last deployment, he went to Djibouti, Africa, and he
Okay.
had this like ammo crate that I would use that I still use as a coffee table. And you know, being broke in LA, working at Home Depot, and just like trying to figure out what to do for more money when I didn't have any like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to be a furniture designer. I didn't have any of that. I was just like, I just need more money. I need a job. It was like, I'll just have fun on my free time.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I want to make one of these crates. Like, I feel like if I can make this, I can sell it, and then we'll just go from there. But around that same time is when, like, I happened upon Jonathan and our previous partner, and they needed help, and then I got hired to sand tables.
So you were already considering making things out of wood. Had you
Yeah.
made anything yet of your own before you met Jonathan?
No.
And how did you guys act? Like, what was the moment? When did you guys meet? Like, what's the meet cute story?
So I got a friend of mine was sanding tables for them, and they got really busy, and they needed help. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, she was building tables already or something.
Oh, I don't remember. It was also kind of a chaotic times, like getting busy and trying to figure out how to, fulfill all these orders. It was kind of chaos.
Yeah.
Our shop back then had like knee-high sawdust on the floor. It was just like, it was gnarly.
Yeah. But so I had an interview with them to start working with them part-time, sanding tables.
So it was a friend worked there and was like, "Yeah, we need some help. Do you want a job?"
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why did you consider the job?
Because I was already planning on I was honestly like, in my head, I was like, yeah, I'll sand these tables, but then it's like, they're woodworkers. I want to make one of these like chests.
Yeah.
So it's like, I was like, I'll sand these tables, but I'm gonna ask them if I can make this. I eventually did make the chest too, but yeah.
Okay. So you quit Home Depot, I assume?
Yeah, so they got really busy, and I quit Home Depot. I was like, it's like conflicting with the scheduling, and I was like, I'll just get a different part-time job. This is when like Instacart had first came around.
Yeah.
And at that time, you could like set your own schedule. So I just like applied at Instacart, got the job. I was like bagging groceries part-time at Whole Foods, set my own schedule, and then just like I was sanding tables aside from that part-time.
When you say sanding tables, was that you just show up and just like sand all day?
So yeah, there would be tables already built for clients that they would make, say like something like this size, and it was reclaimed wood. So like, it's like all the texture and patina on the wood and stuff.
Yeah,
I'd get one of them back there, but I would have to sand it down so it wasn't splintering.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was that like? That sounds like pretty like dull, monotonous work.
It was meditative.
Okay.
And you come from working retail and like everybody kind of like hating their job, and I didn't absolutely love my job either, but it was just fun and something new. Yeah, and natural too. Like it's like a piece of wood. I'm like, oh my god, this wood is sick. I'd never worked with like wood ever like that before, I don't think. And just to see like the grain and sanding it and sanding into it, stuff like that, it was super fun. And
Cool.
just putting on some music or like a podcast.
Just kind of cruise.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So what was the moment that you two met? Jonathan was already there, and you got hired.
Yeah, so he interviewed me.
Oh, you interviewed. Okay, cool.
Yeah, because it was just him and his other business partner at the time.
Okay.
I still remember they're like, yeah, we're a growing company, like sand tables, but we'll eventually teach you how to build them. And if you have any ideas about like other parts of the business too, might want to ask you questions, or you can kind of chime in. And I feel like my response was like, yeah.
And that was all.
Yeah, I was like, you're gonna teach me how to like woodwork, and you want like help with like social media and like websites. I was like, that sounds so easy for some reason. Like, yeah.
So
Yeah.
what year was that? Like about when?
2017.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
2017.
Okay. And you mentioned just a minute ago this concept of like meeting someone and thinking, oh, that guy's got whatever that guy's got. He's going to be successful.
Yeah.
And you said you thought that about LA.
Uh-huh.
What did you experience or see?
That's a good question. And I don't know, it's like sort of hard to describe. It's kind of reminded me just like talking about just common sense, like working at Home Depot and kind of like actually doing your job,
Yeah.
And I think whatever that is, like whatever that spark is in people, just kind of shines through. And it's just like yeah, I don't know. It's just attractive. It's like someone you want to work with.
It is hard to quantify. Like, what is it about that person?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What did you first think when you met Ali? Were you like, that dude's fucking sick? Like, did you guys click immediately?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I feel like the other partner he said like he thought I wasn't gonna work out or something. I
Okay.
thought I was like, I feel like he said that. I can't remember that. Or maybe was that you? You thought I was gonna fuck? No.
It wasn't me, but I don't remember him ever saying that either. But I don't know. Ollie's like fucking cool from down the block, It's
Yeah.
like, and you're working hard. You're working all day. The people that you're working with, like, especially back then, you're spending more time with
Yeah,
the homies at the shop than you
Yeah.
are with anyone else in your entire life.
Yeah. That's really important.
Yeah. So I think then too, it's just like
Culture fit.
culture fit. It's like, dude, cool as hell. We can learn from each other. Like, it just felt really natural. It's like, it's sort of weird when meeting someone. It's like, oh, cool. Do you want to hang out like every day?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that's, I used to not understand when I was younger, and I would like try to get jobs in like corporate environments, or I would hear podcasts like a Tim Ferriss podcast. He's talking to like some, you know, very successful guy that's maybe in his like 60s and had like a lot of life experience. And Tim would be like, "What's like your number one most important thing?" And it's culture fit. And I was like, "What the fuck does that mean?" I didn't get it. And now I've had some of the bad culture experiences, and I'm like, "Oh, I see." Because you're 100% right. It's like if you're going to be working with someone, that's going to be at least 40 hours a week. You're going to see more of them than you will your girlfriend, like family. You know, it's like it is like kind of a. We don't think about it like this, but it's like almost one of the most important relationships of your life, especially if you're going to be like a business partner.
Yeah, for sure.
What did you think of Jonathan the first time you guys met?
So cool. Started that business. I was like, damn, larger than life, dude. What the fuck? Like, this is so sick.
Cool.
You're in here like doing it. You're so busy that you're like, because I got hired. They were, like you said, it was in this small like closet of a space covered in sawdust. I remember being like, y'all fucking need my help. This is disgusting in here. I'm gonna sweep this shit up. Like, this is crazy. And then they like doubled or tripled in space like within like a couple of months being there. It felt like it was probably longer time frame, maybe like 6 months or something, but moved into like a way bigger space and just like started welding in house and like doing and watching him teach himself how to weld essentially, and then like going from that to like we're just like designing our own bases and welding them and just growing. I was like, damn, these guys are fucking sick.
So this is 2017. You know, like what part of the year, like what month-ish when you started?
I started in April.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you had been doing, and this was your company at this point. You're no longer working for JR.
Yeah, this is my company. So this was sort of the evolution of building furniture in the backyard.
Okay. So you were past tarp stage.
Yeah, so we were in the backyard, I think for a year. That was, you know, I asked my buddy Mike if we could build furniture in his backyard. It was just for like a month. And then it's like, dude, we might need a few more months. And, you know, that slowly creeped out into a year until we were having like enough consistency that we went and got a little space. And we're in this big shared space in City Terrace. And so we started off, in like a literal closet. You could build like one piece of furniture at a time. And then, but it's a big creative space. People are in and out all the time. So it was like, as soon as
That's cool.
sold a few pieces in that closet, moved to a slightly bigger space, and then got really busy after we met LA, moved into a bigger space, and kind of just like kept for a few years, you know, just kind of bounced around to anywhere.
So when you took the jump from JR's business to your own, did you already have clients lined up that you just like, did you just kind of pick up where JR left off, or were you starting from scratch? Like, what was it? What was that like?
Starting from scratch, man. There was like, I hate this, but I do it all the time. It really was just a whole lot of like, if you build it, they will come. And I think goals in the beginning were just like, show up to work every day, put bits of wood together, build the coolest thing you can. You know, we were building a lot of stuff. It was just like, if we think it's cool, it's cool. Like, you know, build it for our house. We don't have any clients, so just do it. You know, we were making furniture for the backyard that we were in. We were like making furniture for that house all the time.
Okay.
And photographing that and just like seeing if anyone wanted to buy it. Throwing a lot of stuff on Craigslist in the beginning, just like seeing if anyone wanted to come pick it up.
Is that how you're paying the bills?
I mean, we weren't making any money then, but it's like.
How were you paying the bills?
You know, I don't remember. I was just squeaking by.
Okay. What was your living situation like?
At the time I lived with my girlfriend who was paying the rent.
Okay.
It was like, so my bills were, you know, super low. Yeah.
Okay.
And that was like, you know, very, it's like a privileged place to come from. It was really hard to start on your own, and like, I don't know if anyone does, right? Like, you need support or money or something from somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was that backyard, and not paying like super low bills for that first couple years is like the only reason we were able to sort of have the freedom, like financial freedom in the sense, like we were all broke, but we were
Time freedom.
Yeah, we had
Yeah.
time freedom
Yeah.
in the way that time is money. We were able to fuck around, just like, you know, see if it was going to work, put things together, see if people wanted them, and just learning constantly. You know, the first
Yeah.
thing that you build, it's like you start to see something in it that looks cool, but the quality's not where it wants to be, and
Yeah.
you just have to learn and keep every piece gets a little bit better.
So in the beginning, it was you were just like, I want to keep doing this thing. I'm going to keep doing it, and you were just doing it just because you were trying to make cool stuff, and you were making stuff for your own place, for the guy's house that you were using his backyard, and then just trying to like sell stuff on Craigslist.
Yeah.
So when did it start to like pick up and become like, oh, this is kind of becoming a thing?
It started to become more reliable. It's also a big, and I almost chimed in when you were talking about, for where we both come from, is, you know, you come from skateboarding and I came from music, and especially that real sort of DIY mentality. It really translates also very well. You're doing everything yourself, but it makes it, we've already had all the pieces of building a brand. So, you know, it's like skateboarding and music. You're making T-shirts, you're making stickers, you're posting on the internet. You're making videos.
Yeah, totally.
You know, you have a website, and
You're like getting your stuff out there.
yeah, and I think the cool thing about where we come from is it's not like sort of a corporate brand. It's just like, this is me and my friends. We're doing, the only motivating factor is we're trying to have fun, and like if we think it's cool, it's cool. And that puts you in a really spot, like that attitude is very valuable when you're building a brand.
Wait, let's talk about that. Why do you believe that? Why is that valuable?
I just think it's attractive. It's genuine. It feels good to people. Even when your brand is a little sloppy and it's not perfect, it still feels really true, because that's your only motivation at that point. You know, we weren't really trying to sell things. We were just trying to show people, like, let people into this thing that we were doing. We're having a blast doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that always translates. That translates the best. You know,
Yeah.
people spend a lot of money to try to replicate that, and it's
Yeah.
hard.
That's like another thing that I want to showcase with these conversations is like the authenticity, the truth to like what you guys are doing, is like following your path, because I know that I can be very susceptible to getting pulled different directions, especially with social media. Like my algorithms got me on lock. Like I watch a lot of like business content, like almost like meme content, and it makes my brain go in 12 different directions, because I'm like, well, they're having success with that. Should I do that instead? And then for a while there, I was like, you know what? I'm going to remove all inputs. No social media of any kind. Like basically wouldn't even read books. And the like clarity of thought of like, oh, like what you want comes at the top, because what everyone else is doing isn't like taking up all your brain space. So it really helped me like recenter on, okay, that's all cool, but what's the like thought in my head? And that led us to like this concept basically.
Yeah.
Like, what do I want to do if I was gonna, one of my other aphorisms is, what would you do if success is guaranteed? And a lot of the time I would come back to that when I journal, and that would make all the other stuff disappear, because I wouldn't do it. I'm only interested in it because someone else was like, I'm making 20 grand a month doing this. And I was like, oh, like shiny object syndrome.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to ask you a little bit more about that, because I think that talking about like brand and authenticity and being true to your thing and not trying to like be someone else is like what allows you to carve out your space, like allows you to have your brand and your business. I think that's a really important point.
Yeah, and that's like, it's interesting because that same sort of exercise, you know, if you won the lottery and didn't have to work, you have financial freedom, like what would you do? How would you spend your time?
Yeah.
Being able to actually, you know, realize that in real life, sort of what I was saying, it takes a lot of privilege. Like you need to, if you're stuck, you got to pay the bills. Like, you know, money becomes really important. But if you are able to sort of have the freedom where money isn't the most important thing, I believe, and I think like we believe, that if you can get to that spot, where it's just like, here's how I figured something out, here's what I want to do, here's how I have fun. I do think that that provides the best sort of avenue to be creative and for people to really dig it.
Yeah.
I think it is inherently attractive, and I think that's sort of what started to happen to us. You know, it took a year, but now we had a lot of photography. We had a website. We had some followers on Instagram. We had some clients that were like giving us love on social media, and that sort of just starts to snowball a little bit and makes selling things and business just a little bit more consistent. And once you start having that consistent cash flow is when you can start, you know, getting a space and hiring people. It's just how you get there and sort of that timeline, you know.
I think the low burn lifestyle, meaning like to live, it doesn't cost you that much a month. If you can keep that, if you can like fight the lifestyle creep, it does give you the ability to take risks.
Yeah.
Because there's not like that much to lose. You know, you're like, okay, I have a shitty apartment. I'll have to fucking move home. Like, okay, that's cool. It gives you you're in a really strong spot to like, you basically have nothing to lose. You know, you're starting from nothing. As soon as you like got a nice car that's costing you a bunch of $100 a couple $100 bucks a month, and you got like big apartment, you're like, damn, I have to make money. I can't risk stuff. I think that limits your ability to be creative,
Yeah,
and like, try new things.
Changes the game for sure, yeah.
In a lot of ways. That's also really interesting. Okay, so TARP, bigger spaces, things are getting more consistent. Ale shows up. And then how long were you doing this company that has since been sold?
Yeah, so we started in 2016 and then built that company into a space. We were doing pretty like big volume.
Do you mind sharing like what your revenue numbers were, like yearly or monthly?
I think you started actually in 2015.
2015 in the backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's not my company anymore, I don't know. I guess I can tell you sort of, basically it started to feel very real when we were doing about $500,000 a year in revenue.
Okay.
And we saw that kind of classic jump that people see in industry, where it's like, you know, all of a sudden one year we did 100,000 and it's like, oh damn, like this is a real business.
Yeah.
And then that turned to 250 and then it was like 500. And probably once you got to like 500,000, it felt like a very real business.
So what was that, starting from just under a tarp in a backyard, like did you have any of the business like management experience of what do you do when you got that much money coming in? How do you handle invoicing and accounting? Like what about legal stuff? Like how do you just
like none.
Okay.
And that was sort of the same way looking at like the creative process of building furniture. It was just like having sort of the trust that it's like, all right, if I can like clear my head and sit down and look at this and figure out as I go, like piece by piece, once it starts to make sense, you build a system and then you move on to the other thing, to the next thing, you know? And it was all just, and it took years. It took years of figuring it out piece by piece.
Yeah.
And I know there's plenty of resources and people can learn all these things. I'm like, again, I just like learn by doing. So it was a lot of figuring it out.
Did you start hiring people? Like, did you hire an accountant and did you hire people to like handle fulfillment and phone calls and all that stuff?
Yeah, slowly you start to like build those assets. You know, eventually get in with an accountant that you like and, you know, that can explain stuff to you, because I have no idea how taxes work. That was one of the most frustrating things for me as a business owner. And then it's like figuring out taxes, figuring out insurance, you know, signing leases on places. It just all kind of, it's very overwhelming at first, and that sort of looking up that hill when we first got started felt to me sort of impossible. But it was just, fortunately we were able to grab just one piece at a time and start to build it. And then it's like years of the goal was to sort of automate as much of that as possible so you can get back to being creative and, you know, doing what you actually like doing.
And was your automation via people or software or both?
It was a little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
Yeah. So we hired a team, you know, to like sand tables, to build tables. We're talking to accountants, you know, so we have more time to think about what direction the business is going in, or look at what's coming in revenue. Do we need to pivot? You know, we're doing too much commercial, we're doing too much residential. Do we need to design more? Do we expand upon that? So.
Yeah. And then basically, I guess, sort of building that company and then ultimately selling it to a partner, there was a big aspect of that, you know, we started building furniture and designing furniture. We both design furniture. We both draw. We both like dealing with clients. At a certain point, building that company, you're also building a job that maybe you necessarily don't want.
You get into like a managerial role
Yeah.
instead of a creative role.
Now all of a sudden, you know, I love designing and building furniture. Now all of a sudden I'm managing employees and dealing with taxes and insurance, you know, is taking up like a pretty big chunk of my time. And that starts to really, you know, it goes through phases, and it's like that's the problem you're dealing with then. You try to automate or kind of like grow past that role. But it's like, yeah, it's a hard few years of all of a sudden it's like, you know, talking about avoiding kind of that office job, and then all of a sudden like you created one for yourself.
Which is kind of like the golden handcuffs of success of like your thing is working, but that means you're doing something different now.
Yeah.
And you could like, maybe you could hire people to like hire someone to be the CEO or whatever, but.
Oh, 100%. But again, it's like money and opportunity and just sort of who you meet along the way. So yeah, I don't know. There's an aspect of that I feel like you sort of just end up where you end up. You don't always have control over everything.
So at some point along this path, the idea of selling your shares in this business came to be. Who
Yeah.
brought that up? If we're in dangerous territory,
Yeah, I
you can
think
just-
that-
you can just press skip.
I think that's where it gets
Probably
weird.
skip.
Yeah,
Yeah,
getting
skip
getting into
that.
the nuts and bolts of that experience. If that's interesting for you, like, yeah, we can chat about that, but we
Yeah.
don't need to include that in this at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about the reason you may have considered that option of selling? Of selling the thing that you guys built, like what was why did you think, okay, why did that idea even come up?
I guess it's like, I don't know, kind of the sort of like washed out story is, you know, I think kind of getting to a point where we sort of created that job. It was like we were very increasingly farther away from this creative process that we loved. And sort of this studio really represents us like getting back to doing what we care about, and sort of stripping away those other things. It's a smaller organization. It's like we're not managing employees. We were able to take all of the lessons that we learned building that first company, like hard-earned lessons that took years and stress to sort of understand and build. And now starting over, it's like we're starting with a much different foundation than we did the first time.
Okay.
So there was something really attractive about that aspect of starting over. You know, like looking back at a company that you built and seeing all of the mistakes that you made that, you know, you would have to go back and fix, and some things are sort of impossible to kind of like undo. So starting over is like, all right, we're gonna start over and we get to do all of these things right from the get-go, and just makes everything a little bit more manageable, a little bit more easier, a little bit less stress. So we kind of are carved open this pocket where we can just try to have fun and build furniture and feel good and just like kind of take all of the great things that we had with that financial freedom from the first time we started the company and sort of replicate it and try to hang on to it a little bit longer.
Cool. So you guys sold the company, got a little money injection. You took a year off to skateboard and drink
Yeah.
beer. You said, right?
Yeah, I just took a year off essentially.
Okay.
Yeah, but nothing changed, you know, for me. I just had I still had a routine. It just wasn't building furniture.
Okay. And so you were, for that whole year, you were no work at all, no building furniture?
Actually, you know what? I played with trying to learn how to run a CNC and like
Okay.
seeing how I could expand upon my knowledge in like this industry and where that can be applied. And you know, I got a job working for this guy for a couple months, didn't really like it, and I was like, I don't want to be in this little room with this massive machine and like, you know, touching up components that are like being made for, because he had like big commercial clients
Got
and
it.
things.
Yeah.
That's cool. Not my cup of tea. And then I tried another job where I was just like managing the shop for this. He does similar work to this, but he'll do like a full remodel. Let's say you're doing a picket fence out front. He'll do that too. Make your dining table. He's gonna do the cabinets. He's gonna make your interior doors.
Got it.
So it was just like a lot of random shit going on, and also like just a really chaotic shop where I was like, fuck this, dude. You can't pay me enough money to be here. And then it was just like, you know, going back to like being told what to do and having to answer to somebody. It's like,
Yeah.
dude, no, we're doing something.
So when was the sale of the other business?
Early 2022. It's
March.
like
Okay.
about to be 2 years.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask also, what was the pandemic part of that business like? Were you guys still working like a lot? Or were you growing, or was it?
Oh man, pandemic changed a lot of shit for that business. So we were doing, we just moved to a bigger shop again. We had just taken on some more employees. We were doing mostly commercial build outs at that point. A lot of offices, a lot of restaurants, and it's all, you know, we'd build 60 desks for a client, and then some like accent pieces for their common areas. So it was big jobs. It's a lot more money. And it was also talking about just all the other things that you have to keep track of. And when you're selling 60 desks to somebody, you're dealing with one client one time, you know? Pandemic hit, and all of a sudden that's like all out the window. You know, restaurants closed, offices closed. There was, in our industry, everyone started buying home goods. So that picked up like crazy. So we went from like 70% commercial and 30% residential to 100% residential, you know, overnight. And then selling 60 desks to 60 individual people, it takes a lot more work and infrastructure than selling them to just one company. So we were fortunate that the business actually kind of stayed the same revenue-wise, but the amount of work and the systems that we built all had to sort of be adjusted to accommodate for it.
Okay. Okay, so sold in what part, like end of 2022 you said?
No,
March.
beginning March.
Okay, cool. So what did you do? Did you take some time off?
I took kind of the same year off.
Oh, you said Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Brooklyn, Costa Rica, and ayahuasca.
Okay. Yeah, you know, it's a classic. It's like changed my life up. Went to Costa Rica, drank ayahuasca.
Find yourself.
Do a little exploring. Went to New York for a summer. I had a back injury too, which kind of like laid me out for a little while. And I think that was the main, I sort of, you know, you were working for other companies and kind of took a few jobs in that time period. And I was like a little laid out from an injury. So it wasn't until kind of that year went by that we started meeting back up. And pretty quickly, as soon as we started seeing each other talking about like the last year, I was like, you know, we were both still really interested in furniture. We weren't done yet. So it was pretty quick that it was just like, all right, like, let's do this again.
So at the moment of sale of the first business, you guys weren't like, we're going to sell this and get back to the stuff we like. You were just like ready for a break, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we both discussed it. We're just like, oh, I mean, we could just like, you know, just start up right away kind of thing. And then, you know, once
When you
shit
get the
hits
check,
the,
you're like-
once shit hits the fan, you're like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna chill.
Yeah.
I'm gonna chill and we'll just reconvene whenever we reconvene.
When the funds hit the bank account, you're like, yeah, I think I'm going to take a little break.
Like, yo, bro,
Yeah.
go on vacation.
Cool. So you guys kind of took your years, went separate ways, just like, cool, we got a little win, let's just like take some time off, recover, like, and you started to reconnect.
Yeah.
And what brought you back together?
Just being in contact, like, you know, we went through this together. It's like, what are you doing? I don't know. What are you doing? I don't know. You want to do something? All right.
Okay.
Yeah, like, all right. Like, and then just kind of starting the conversation from there, you know? It's like, oh, these jobs aren't really working out for me. This job is like, I'd rather just like, we need CNC work. Let's just outsource it, you know? Like,
Yeah.
Or like, in the future, if I come across something I want to make that requires a CNC, it's like, I don't care to know how to do
Okay.
that per se. Or then it's like, oh, well, I can do this for a job. The job sucks. Like, I don't want to do that. I want to go back to being my own boss and designing and building my own furniture and not doing it for someone else.
Cool.
You know? So.
So you guys were just kind of like back and forth, like, what's up? What are you ready to start something new? And it was
Yeah.
furniture again.
We would meet up. We would have coffee, go meet up for coffee, and kind of discuss what our ideas were and like what direction we wanted to take and what it would look like.
What were those ideas? Like, what was in your mind, and what was like your vision for if you were going to get back into this? You mentioned getting back to what matters. That like you love the designing. You don't want like you want to take the best of the big business, but put it back into your like do the stuff you care about. But what else was important?
Yeah, I think that's sort of, yeah, it's really representative of what we have been doing now. And it's like the things we were talking about is sort of how we want to present ourselves, the things that we wanted to build. You know, finances come into play, and just like trying to figure out how to get some money to sort of get this started and limit like our liability as much as possible. And we just like meeting up, hashing out all those details, and once it finally started to feel like it was working, you know, so we started looking for clients, moved into this space, and started building a lot of the stuff here. So it's like all of the prototypes that we were talking about then that we ended up starting to put together.
This was actually drawn up before we even had an LLC or a space or anything.
This table?
Yeah. So it's like, it was just kind of like, what do we want to make, you know?
Yeah.
Like, what is interesting? We never really worked with upholstery, or what else? Like, just like, they're just trying to do stuff new and a little bit more higher end, I would say, than the price point at our previous business.
Okay.
And it was exciting that we were like, all right, well, let's not have a metal shop, because we're used to having like wood and steel.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, all right, well, I want to focus on just wood and expanding that skill set, being like a very skilled woodworker, and just like, you know, just the fun of like having an idea, sketching it out, and like bringing it to life in its entirety. And then, you know, it's like creating art in a sense, where we come from. Like we just said, it's like we're making a bunch of office desks. Those office desks were still handmade. Those bases were hand welded, but they weren't really like
Artistic?
They were for sure,
Okay.
if you look at it from that perspective, but it is like 60 desks going for like a corporate office, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not saying I would turn that down now if someone wanted 60 of these, but yeah, I don't know. We were just like looking at it more of a artistic endeavor than like we're gonna hand make these things, and we'll see. Yeah.
I think it was like, there's an aspect of that for, you know, those, I don't want to get caught up in the timeline of it, like 6 years that we were working together. We were constantly making progress on the pieces we were doing. They kept getting better, the quality kept getting better. I know it's like when you're working on learning curves, like that initial like rapid progress that you make is really, really exciting. It's really, really fulfilling. And once you get to the top of that curve, like you're working really hard to make tiny little improvements. It's still very fulfilling, it's sick, but it's like a bit of a slog. And I think this kind of represented for us getting back a little bit on that learning curve. It was all right, let's experiment more with joinery. Let's do like what we think is like higher end wooden bases. And it's like, because we hadn't really experimented with that before, we were able to again sort of make rapid progress and both get way better at woodworking just by changing sort of like the context and the medium that we were working in.
Cool.
It was like really, yeah, just exciting. And that's another thing that's like, when we're excited, when we're having fun, it's like, all right, we're doing good stuff.
Yeah, that's important. You mentioned getting like the money to start up and limiting liability. For the money, did you guys put in your money that you made from the sale? Did you get a loan? How'd you guys start it up?
We started this, our first company, we straight up bootstrapped. I had like $1,000 on a credit card, and just like, we're selling pieces to make enough profit to buy more tools and like move forward. With this company, we both were able to put in a little bit of money to get started, and then got a small loan. It was like, and I think I mean mostly with liability is like, we both have a lot of confidence that we're doing things that we believe in, and it's like, in a long enough timeline, I think we're going to be successful and have the careers that we want to have. But as like time is money, we just like don't want to run out of time. So we did need some money to start up, and limiting liability, I mean, it's just like, all right, if something, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. If something does go terribly wrong, we don't want to be in like the kind of debt that's going to change your life,
Okay, that's a good point. So that was, you said, when was the founding of this? Like, when did you guys come together and officially like start on Snyder & Paas?
Almost exactly a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah, 11 months ago.
So how's the year been?
It's been a roller coaster.
Okay.
It's been fun though. We've been just prototyping and developing new pieces, and we sold a couple pieces, and now we got potential collaborations in the works. So
Cool.
It's exciting.
Nice.
Really just like learning photography, making a website. I think at our last place that was slightly outsourced, but yeah.
And it's like building a brand from scratch. Everything takes longer than you think it's going to take, even though we've done this before.
Yeah.
I say that all the time. It's going to take 3 times as long as you think.
And so we were just like, yeah, it's going to take 3 times longer than we think, but we've done it before. So it's only going to take twice as long. And it's like, we're
Not really? No.
No, we got to skip a lot of steps, but yeah, I mean, a year ago it was, a piece of plywood on some sawhorses in here, and like us sitting at our computers trying to figure out what to do.
Just starting from like totally blank. Like, what are we going to do now? Let's do something that we.
Yeah.
Okay.
So concepting our first pieces, starting to build that brand focus. We've put a big focus on photography and doing all the photography ourselves.
Yeah.
Which is another thing that's, took a lot of time to learn.
Yeah.
And then, we've been building, we've had a few commissions, like we've sold some pieces, we made a little bit of money, but now we're sort of just like reaching out to designers, meeting new people, and just kind of like stacking as many opportunities as we possibly can. And kind of like from our first experience, we're not naive. You get good looks all the time. Only a certain percentage of that actually comes through. So we've just been spending this last year kind of like meeting as many people we can, stacking as many opportunities we can, so that over the next year we'll have a lot of these things kind of come through.
Like planting seeds that'll come to fruition in the future. Okay.
Yeah, relationships, people that we want to work with, brand collaborations that are all kind of working in the background, and we'll see when they hit, how many hit, and when they start to come to fruition.
Cool.
I was reaching out to 5 designers a day at one point. I was like emailing, just like,
When you say designers, what kind of designers?
interior designers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that a big deal, like to be on their radar?
Yeah, because you're gonna get repeat business from someone that works in remodeling a space or something like that.
Got it.
Yeah, especially if you work with them, they like the way you work, your pieces, the communication, the customer service, all that stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, we've been reaching out to so many.
How's that going?
It's slow.
Yeah.
It's definitely slow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
But-
that's how I met you guys. I just sent you a cold email.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
you get in the habit of not getting a response. And
Yeah, it's a numbers game for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, you learn how to fail. I'm not saying that failure, you know, that's perspective too. It's not a fail. I mean, you reached out. That's a win, you know. Once someone reaches back out, I mean, it's always fun to get an email back and it's like, love your work. Like, we'll definitely keep you in our like list of vendors to reach out to if we feel like you're a good fit for a project. That's like, we get that email, I'm like, fuck yeah, thank you so much for that compliment. Like, please come by our studio anytime, check out our pieces, and yeah, just like start a relationship. So
Cool. What do you guys, like, do you guys have goals or guidelines or a vision set for near future, long term?
I think there's a couple of goals for the near future right now that are kind of like in the works.
Well, I guess like, what was I thinking about with the designers, and I guess the goals too. There's an aspect of a lot of what we've done in the last year where we're kind of, I don't want to say purposefully, but we're doing a lot of things that are kind of hard. So like one of our goals was to work with designers, to work with showrooms, to work with galleries as much as possible. We were always direct to consumer, and we feel like we understand that world pretty well. So sort of not having the safety of that is forcing us to change the way that we do things. So all this work that we've been doing this last year and trying to build those relationships, we're looking as like very long-term investments, instead of trying to just sort of replicate what we had done in the past. And that's so like this next year for our goals is to sort of expand some of these relationships, work with more people that we really admire. And we do have brands that we're trying to collaborate with and put some new things out that we've never made before. And it's like, you know, we started developing kind of this line of furniture. You can see it's like we've been prototyping chairs has been like a big part of our last year. And we're about to start prototyping and moving into some lighting and like seeing where that takes us to.
Cool. Very cool. Are you guys not interested in direct to consumer?
I wouldn't say we're not necessarily not interested. I think it's more of the challenge of like, it just feels like a step in a different direction. That's like where the challenge is appealing, you know?
Okay.
Just like, and it'd be like very satisfying to work with people that we want to work with. That's like, you know, it's like, oh man, they're doing cool stuff. I want to work with them.
Yeah.
So like in that same kind of light, you know?
Cool.
And it's like creatively collaborating with other designers and people who are working in our field just feels like a way to continue to expand what we're doing instead of kind of feel like direct to consumer is kind of locking in where we're at. Like this is what we manufacture now. So there is an aspect of it where it's like for the sake of progress, we're kind of avoiding it for now.
Interesting. Okay. Why do you feel like, so you feel like direct to consumer is a little bit limiting, would you say? Restrictive?
I think it's that same, there's an aspect of it that's golden handcuffs.
Okay.
Develop a product and you start selling it and now it's like, and now we're a manufacturing business, you know?
Got it. Okay. So is the gallery / interior designer approach like a bit like a slower, like treating each piece from a perspective of like handmade one-off art, like
Yeah.
collectible design, as
Yeah.
opposed to like,
And it's more expensive.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So that's been our goal for this project, and
Okay.
you know,
High-end.
been working towards it for a year and continue the next year.
Yeah, high-end, handcrafted, like attention to detail.
Yeah.
You're gonna know it's like a piece that we made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that I have noticed is like, you know, I think I've always been really sensitive to my environment in a lot of different ways, but like if I would go into a place that just had like cheap stuff in it, I just always feel like I'd notice, I can know. I feel the chairs wobbly and the tables like kind of shitty. I went to a really nice sushi restaurant a few weeks ago, and when you sit down, you're like, oh yeah, this is this is
legit.
nice stuff. This chair is like someone handmade this chair.
Yeah.
It doesn't wobble. It's fucking solid. This table is like, you can tell a difference. And it's just the same with this. You're like, okay, this is like what, inch and a half thick. Like this is not some cheap
Inch and 3/4.
inch and 3/4.
Sorry.
I did my best to guess,
Yeah.
but like this is real. Like this is
Yeah.
not some, I don't know like what IKEA uses, like particle board or something like that, but like this is not that, which I think is awesome. I love like something that's solid and
Yeah,
Well,
we're trying to focus on, like you're saying, it's like you go to a restaurant and the furniture just like feels a little cheap. It's like those little details, whether you're paying attention or not, you start to feel all of them. And that's like why we focus on every little detail of every little piece, keep
Yeah.
everything tight. You know, if there was a pile of sawdust in the corner, it would register. Just like, damn, these
Yeah,
guys aren't paying attention, you know?
yeah, I like that kind of stuff because I'm the same. I noticed the little stuff. I'm gonna cut the corner here. This isn't right. This doesn't fit right. Like this joint is like a little bit loose. Like I really appreciate the detail, which is part of why I'm doing this too. Is like shine a light on the people who are taking that extra care to like make it have that level of attention to detail.
And we do it because we love doing it. That's like the other part of it. It's like, it's not necessarily like we're trying to do it because it's going to be more expensive or something like that. We just love working, like being woodworkers, or, you know, whatever term you want to put
Yeah,
on it, like
yeah.
artist, woodworker, whatever. It's just like being able to like have this idea and craft it with all the attention to detail. It's like, it's so much fun. It's so satisfying. So it's like, the business is just so we can sustain and keep
Yeah.
doing this, you
Keep
know,
doing the thing
the thing that we love.
Yeah, cool.
It's like going back to like, I just wanted to pay my bills and do what I love. It's the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah,
Just my bills are more expensive now.
yeah,
So yeah, it's so fun, especially like, you know, expanding our knowledge and already having attention to detail. When you expand your knowledge, you're already like more detail oriented. So like the new thing you haven't done before is already just gonna be of a certain caliber of like quality, you
Yeah,
know? It's
yeah.
like this prototype, that's a prototype, like
yeah.
you could sell that. So yeah.
Cool. So do you guys intend to make everything yourselves by hand? Everything that comes out of here, everything that someone buys from you?
There's components that probably wouldn't be made here. I'm not particularly interested also in like doing our own upholstery.
Okay.
Obviously we'd pick the fabric and stuff, but depends on the situation. But especially with like lighting, I think some things we have the capabilities to like wire stuff ourselves, and it's fun to learn that stuff. But say, you know, given a certain situation, some of those things may need to be done by other people.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, something, we have enough experience that we know, just like upholstery is to make really nice, it's hard.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, taking a couple years to upholster a bunch of stuff ourselves just doesn't feel realistic.
Yeah, and it just depends on the situation, I think. Especially, upholstery specifically is like, yeah, we're not going to do that. But
I think that makes sense though. It's like sometimes you got to accept like, okay, my specialty is I'm a woodworker.
yeah.
I'm not, there's someone else who is a master upholsterer
Yeah,
and I should let them do their thing so I can do my thing. Like I can focus on being the best woodworker I can be, and then they can do their thing with upholstery.
yeah, like we've created a high standard, so we're making really nice wood pieces, and it's like, yeah, we can't put our own shit upholstery on it. So
Yeah.
you got to find an upholsterer that's working to the same standard that we are.
Yeah.
Totally.
How do you guys feel about life right now? Do you feel like stressed, frazzled? Do you feel like comfortable, calm, happy? Are you, what's your feeling about where you're at now?
I'm excited. I feel calm and excited. It's like, again, pretty slow right now and reaching out to as many people as we can, but starting this new venture, feels so weird to call that like new venture. Like we're doing the same shit we were doing before,
Yeah,
just like
yeah.
getting better and better, you know, with time. I keep saying like I age like wine and you just get better. But I know, it's funny. I think I'm just excited for our collaborations too that we have are pretty exciting.
Cool.
Yeah. How about you?
Man, dude, this last year has been, I've been happy, man. Life feels good. It's like, yeah, there is always going to be a certain level of kind of stress that comes with being in a business, but it's like, I really like the way you put it. It's like the struggle that you enjoy.
Yeah.
And like, I've created a lot of struggles that maybe I enjoyed for a minute, but stopped enjoying. It's like this last year, it's like this struggle's been great. Like if this is what it is, like cool.
That's awesome. Is that the first time in your life you felt like that?
I think there's been ebbs and flows. Like,
Okay.
maybe not. I think when I first started playing music, and that sort of dirty teenagers rolling around in vans, like that's a hard lifestyle, and that was a struggle I loved for sure. That was like, it was like, oh, I'm built for this. Like I can do this. But yeah, for a time, and this is probably like, I feel like that again now. Just like, oh, this is it. I'm good for the long haul.
Cool. What do you guys aspire to? Like, are you trying to prioritize, it doesn't sound like you're trying to prioritize like profit. You're not in this because you want to like travel Lux and have a really big house. Like, what's like driving you? Is it purely just like you love this, you want to push the limiter of your creativity with this medium? Like what's your kind of big like nebulous goal or driving force? Or do you not think about that?
I kind of think that those are related, like the sort of, I'll speak for myself, but yeah, it's like not interested in, or it's not necessary for me to make a ton of money. And sort of happiness for me at this point is like, if I can have a job that I love doing and it's sustainable, as long as I can sort of like pay all my bills and not have financial stress in my life, that is my bar. As long as I get past there, it's like all cool. I also sort of think that if that's your attitude, you're doing what you love to do, you're making the best things you can, you're treating people as well as you possibly can while taking care of yourself. I also think that's like the path to material success at the end of the day also. So I'm kind of just trying to focus on that bar, that financial freedom to just sort of feel good and be happy. But I also feel like if that's your focus, you can find success on the other side of that.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that was very well put in a very, very nice way. I would say the same. I mean, I just love doing this, so I would love to see it grow and how it grows, and I'm excited for that. But, money's a thing, so luckily, like, we're doing what we love, and it's super fun, and it's like, I think the money's gonna come regardless. I'm not gonna say, like, I don't want to have money.
Yeah.
But it'd be great to, if I was rich, I would still be doing this, but I might own a house in, like, Italy or something,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would still be making furniture though, regardless. So it's like, you feel it when someone's doing what they love and they care about what they do, and I think that will amount to a lot of money, hopefully, in the future.
Yeah, I think another reason I'm doing, this concept is like, part of it is the like shining the light on the people that are doing the stuff with that kind of like approach, the approach of love and trying to get viewers to prioritize that over like the cheap, disposable, sometimes rip-off stuff.
Yeah, I think if you carry that aspect throughout your life, like a lot more people did that, the world would just be a better place, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the hope, is to like inspire people to like, you could do this path. You could have this life of, I feel really good. I can wake up and do what I like every day. I don't have a boss. I don't have to go to like a fucking office. I can wear clothes that I want. Like, I don't have to do office bullshit.
Yeah.
I can do what I like. I can pay my bills and I feel good. And then that's a really great place to be, and especially a great place to create from. It's like a really safe, secure place to like just throw shit at the wall, see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude, financial stress is a real creativity killer.
Yeah, it's hard.
And you start making weird decisions. And it's sort of, I think you were talking about it, you know, you start, or like social media works like this too, right? It's like people do something and it works and it like kind of flattens culture.
Yeah.
And everyone starts doing the same thing over and over again because you're chasing dollars. And it's just way more interesting if you can, you know, I understand you got to pay the bills, but it's like if you can avoid chasing money and just be as creative as possible, you're going to make cooler stuff.
Yeah,
and
it'll probably pay off in the end.
That's what
Better.
I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how I believe it. It's like you're gonna, if you just stay true to yourself and not chase the money will come. You just have to
Yeah.
be patient.
You gotta play the long game.
You have to play the
Mhm.
long game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to figure out how that will work for you, how you can play the long game.
Yeah,
and
that's
if
the tough
you
part.
can
Yeah.
be patient enough for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you gotta, that part concept is like, you gotta be, it's that concept of like delaying gratification. The longer you can delay gratification, the greater your success will be. The longer you can say, listen, I can drive my old shitty car, I can wear my old shitty clothes, I don't have to go to the restaurant or the bar, you know, whatever it is, I can delay all that, because you gotta like really think about what's your priority. I think it's really easy to get caught up in like unintentional life. You can get caught up as like a follower, basically, of like, if you have people around you who are like, oh, yo, we're hitting the bar, and you're like, damn it, I need to save my money so I can buy that fucking tool. All of a sudden you blow a couple $100 at the bar, you're not buying that tool anytime soon.
Yeah.
And you just put the bar above your other thing because you didn't act with intention, you act with impulse. Because you're like, because that's hard. You got the bar offer and you're like, well, my friends are going out, I got FOMO, they're gonna have fun. That's hard to say no. You gotta like disappoint people and you gotta miss out on stuff, but you really gotta have that, okay, what's my long-term priority? You gotta make those sacrifices, it's hard.
It is.
It was like, you read any of like Nick Offerman's books? I listen to him talk.
I think I read one of his first one quite a while ago, yeah.
There was something, I don't remember it exactly, but it was along those lines. He was talking about early days. He was doing some woodworking with a guy, and he was like, he was like, oh, we're gonna go out to eat, do you wanna come? He's like, yeah, you guys can go out to eat, or we can spend like $7, make a giant pot of chili, and eat that for like 4 days, and then we can buy a used table saw. And they're all just like, sick, chili, like, let's get that table saw.
That's what it takes. That's what it takes. It takes like I think the social media part of it is also what makes it hard, because everyone's trying to look good, like to impress people they don't know or really don't care about, and that's what it's like, I think.
Yeah.
People are shooting themselves in the foot. And I'm susceptible to that too, you know? I have played that game, and I have to like, and I've chosen the wrong thing and been like, damn it. It's like a constant battle.
Sure. I mean, we're not all monks, right? Like, sometimes you gotta get a little loose, have some fun.
Yeah, it's true. You gotta be some balance. I'm a pretty extreme person, so my girlfriend's always like, hey, you gotta have a little bit of balance. So, yeah. Cool, guys. We had a pretty wide-ranging conversation. I think we're gonna wander around the studio and talk a little bit about the trajectory of your work and your creative process and inspiration, but I think we're pretty much wrapped up on the story. Anything we missed or that you want to share that you think would be important?
Not that I can think of. Yeah.
No, I think that's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Cool.
Sick.
Let's wander around.
Sick.
Yeah.
Let's do it.